Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, you know, it just doesn't get old, does it? That new intro, I'm telling you.
You know what powers us every day, Brad?
What's that?
Ancient Chinese secret. For folks who don't know what we're talking about, check out yesterday's show. And Brad smartened me up to a popular 1980s phrase.
Ancient Chinese secret.
There it is right there. And, of course, we had the debut of the new NPR theme.
We are National Public Radio, NPR, where the news is what we say is the news.
Man, if you read the news stories, there is a meltdown going on at NPR.
You don't say, Brad.
Oh, my. And the crazy part of that crazy, weird story is, if you go back and read it again, the guy who just resigned as CEO, after the George Floyd thing, he started this program called Guiding Star or North Star, and he specifically encouraged all the members, all the journalists of NPR to join a I guess you'd call it a racial affiliated group, you know, where you're and they had they all had these crazy names like the Noir group, which was the black people. I'm going, man. I mean, you know, once again, why don't we need Rodney King back here? I need to get that Rodney King drop. What's he say? Why can't we
all just get along?
Right. Why can't we just be Americans or Missourians or whatever? I mean, why? Because
Brad, that denies the very real experience of slavery that so many of our fellow citizens endure every day.
John.
You know, think of all the people in the United States that at one point were slaves here in the 1800s, Brad.
Well, and it's not all black people, because you go through the history of the world and there's all sorts of countries that have slaves, right? I mean,
yeah.
Aren't there slaves in the Bible? Weren't there certain
Oh, of course there are. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't the Romans have slaves?
Yeah, of course they are.
And they weren't black slaves; they were white slaves. Anyway, let's not go there. Okay, that's
Let's not go there, Brad. Not this early.
Yeah, no kidding. That's John Combest. I just have to say one more thing. I have told this story. As a matter of fact, I don't know how many people I've sent that link to those NPR stories. Friends of mine who are NPR freaks and love NPR and KWMU, and a couple of them even used to volunteer at KWMU for their fundraisers. And you know what? I'm not trying to dissuade them from the fact that they think it's a great radio station, and you know, and blah 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 blah. But it's just to the point where my complaint is it's government funded and it's biased media. I mean, it's like just incredibly biased news. And
it is.
Go
ahead, Brad.
Well, when the guy says that he all the people in the newsroom, there are 87 people in the newsroom, and guess how many voted for Trump and declared they were Republican? 0. So what does that tell you? Now, the interesting thing about that is, don't you think that would be covered under DEI? Don't you think they would say, oh, okay, no, we have to have half Democrats and half Republicans? No, that doesn't count.
Yeah, well, that would also leave out Democratic Socialists, though, Brad.
I guess. Okay.
And I got to say, I did point out at one point, I sent an email to Elaine Cha about this.
Yeah.
And she just said, ancient Chinese secret.
No, she didn't.
That's all she said. 3 words, Brad. I like the fact. And she said it in a very soft tone, though, Brad.
Did you record that?
I did, but
ancient
I had
Chinese
to turn the
secret.
volume way up because she talks like this.
But it sounds like a dude.
Ancient Chinese secret.
It doesn't sound like her.
Ancient Chinese secret.
Brad, we got a banger of 3 stories. Let's get into it.
We're on our way to the number one in third place.
Brad, I need your participation in this one today, okay?
Only if
For those who don't know, offline, occasionally, right when I start to give the top 3, every once in a while, Brad will crack open a little Debbie. Am I right, Brad?
Participation only if I get an award.
Yeah. And Lord knows, I love to bury my face in some white cake. But now is not the time for Little Debbie's, Brad, because I need your help here. Yesterday, we beat up on St. Louis City a little bit, didn't we?
Yes.
We did, because we talked a little bit about positive. We talked about the Westplex, and we talked about that Wall Street Journal story. However, Brad, this is important. There's a St. Louis story that I am going to call out for you here, and here's where I want your participation. I want you to guess which of the three people this quote came from. Okay. The quote is, and it's in the Post-Dispatch today, quote, "We want to help build the city of St. Louis back up." Now, is that from St. Louis Mayor Tashara Jones? Is it from St. Louis Cardinals managing partner Bill DeWitt III? Or is it from Greater St. Louis Inc. CEO Jason Hall? I'll give you the quote again. "We want to help build the city of St. Louis back up."
I say number 3.
And that would be Jason Hall.
Yes.
Incorrect, Brad. I tricked you. To quote my children at times, tricked you. That quote, Brad, is from the operator of Kind Goods. It's a marijuana store, Brad, and it's opening up 150 feet away from a school in St. Louis City. Have you heard the story, Brad?
Now, how can they do that? I thought there was the 1,000-foot rule or
Oh,
whatever.
there was, Brad. And you know what? I thought the exact same thing. And in the story today, which is by Hannah Wyman in the Post-Dispatch, you and I were simpatico on that, Brad. I thought there was 1,000 feet of any elementary or secondary school according to state regulations. But guess what? Alderman in 2020 changed the St. Louis code to remove any spacing requirements.
Really?
So I don't know how this works. We might need to have one of the attorneys who listens to the show weigh in on this. I can't believe that St. Louis City can just say, nah, I know there's supposed to be 1,000 feet, but here in the city, there's no spacing requirements.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's churches and schools.
That's correct. Yeah, daycare, church, or elementary or secondary school.
Right.
You're right. Now, Alderwoman Kara Spencer, according to the Post-Dispatch, established a bill in response to this proposal, introduced a bill that would have at least 500 feet that would between schools and daycares, and that bill was assigned a committee, the Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee, and it has seen no activity since, Brad. Now, here's the kicker to this. So, not only will a school be opening, I believe it's today. Yeah, a school will open today. Or that dispensary will open today. I guess that used to be a Jimmy John's location on South Broadway. On the very same street, Brad, another dispensary is opening up in sorry, I should have it right in front of me. But it's opening up. It has applied for a secondary dispensary at 1531 South Broadway. So the next block over, another dispensary will be opening up. It says about 150 feet away, Brad.
Man, John, I don't want to get in trouble. Let's move on to number 2. Is that okay?
That's good.
Up a notch to number 2.
Oh, the Post-Dispatch is having a victory lap over a lack of victory lap. Now, I happen to be a fan of the phrase victory lap. I use it a lot. But the Post-Dispatch headline today, Brad, via reporter Kurt Erickson, is "Committee Spoils Plan for Missouri House Speaker's Victory Lap." And what this is about is that yesterday at the Capitol, apparently, Dean Plocher and his supporters had planned on getting together and announcing in the Capitol that the House Ethics Committee had come back and said there would be no penalties, that there would be no hand slapping, no wrist slapping of Dean Plocher. However, the Ethics Committee came out yesterday and said they would meet again on Monday. Now, the interesting thing about this, Brad, and I linked to this today underneath the Dean Plocher story from the Post-Dispatch, I linked to a piece that Scott Fawn wrote this week. And I mentioned this one other time on the show, Brad. Scott points out that this Dean Plocher drama has dragged on for 7 months. So the Ethics Committee has been moving at a glacial pace, Brad. And Scott points out that it takes 6.5 months to conceive, carry, and birth a wombat.
Huh?
You can create a wombat, Brad, in less time than it takes for the House Ethics Committee to look at Dean Plocher's campaign expense report. And as we talked about before, Brad, he paid back the roughly, I think it was $4,000, give or take a few bucks. And the investigation has cost at least $14,750. So The gist of the story is the Post-Dispatch is obviously giddy about the fact that Dean Plocher thought that this would all be put behind him yesterday, and it will drag on at least until Monday, bare minimum. So it's a victory lap about a lack of victory lap. I would suggest folks who haven't already read it, go to johncombest.com today and read Scott Fawn's story from Monday about his take on the Plocher investigation.
Once again, I don't know the guy. I wouldn't care if he's a Republican, Democrat. I know he's a Republican, but I think it's much ado about nothing. I think it's a stupid mistake he made. And once again, the situation that I have seen, and being a presenter at the candidate university, whatever they call it, the MEC, slaps your hand, and you move on, right? Isn't that the way it normally works?
That's generally what happens.
Right.
Yeah. And the sad thing about the Missouri Ethics Commission, too, is that not only are there a number of vacancies right now, but from what I gathered, Brad, the Ethics Commission has no enforcement mechanism by which they can go out and actually collect the fines. So if someone was fined a great deal of money and they said, yeah, we're just not going to pay it, and let's say they never plan for running for office again, then the Attorney General's office would be tasked with going after folks and collecting bills for, $50,000, $20,000, whatever it is. But to your point, Brad, yeah, and usually you have a wrist slap. And the other sad thing about this, which is just a fact of modern day politics, is that if you have 10 Republicans, or let's say you have 9 Republicans, Brad, that are running for Secretary of State, there's really only 8, but work with me here. If you have, let's say, 10 Republicans who are running against Dean Plocher, at least 7 of them will say, okay, we know this isn't a big deal, but we're still going to run ads claiming that Dean Plocher is a crook who uses his campaign fund to enrich himself.
Well, all they have to do – hold on a minute. I got a cough. I'm sorry. All they have to do is collect the money, is turn it over to Department of Revenue, Missouri Department of Revenue, and they'll chase you down for 32 cents.
They will. No matter how much it takes.
Right. They'll have a guy show up at your door. You owe the state 32 cents. You pay it right now. We're going to impound your car. Okay, moving along.
The number one.
U.S. Representative Eric Burlison, who represents the southwest part of the state, recently took a trip to Israel. And that trip is profiled in the Springfield News Leader today. It is the top article on johncombest.com today. And Congressman Burlison talks a little bit about how the trip to Israel really confirmed the fact that he cannot support a call for a ceasefire. As you know, Biden has said that he's calling for a ceasefire. Burlison says that any kind of a ceasefire will hamper Israel's ability to go in and reclaim hostages that have been taken by Hamas. So the congressman shared a number of pictures that are included in the article here, talked a little bit about, he met with a family of a young man who has been held hostage. So I would suggest folks go in and at least skim the story and see what Congressman Burlison has to say.
Okay, that's the top 3 for this morning. Now, I have something that I'm just going to come right up front and say this. I'm not against your buddy Jay Ashcroft. I know you're a big Jay Ashcroft guy. I like Mike Kehoe because I love his backstory. If you know his backstory, literally grew up in North City and has become a very successful business person. But my guy is Bill Eigel.
And tell us why, Brad.
Well, I think Bill is the man. I really do. And I think he's a veteran, was Air Force veteran. When we had him on the air, he talked about that he worked in some crazy country that I never even heard of as a refueling station, actually a small Air Force base that he essentially ran. I just don't think he's getting enough good vibes. So I have gone into the studio. What are you laughing at already?
I already love this, Brad.
I have gone into the studio to create a Bill Eigel video. Actually, this is the audio from the video. Now, I will say this, that in the metro, pretty much everybody knows Bill Eigel. But when you get out into the real salt of the earth Missouri, where, everybody's driving an F-150 or a Silverado or a Ram 1500, and, they wear boots every day. And they have that when they turn on the radio, there's that little button they press that no matter what station they're listening to, it twangs everything.
I do know it.
I think Bill needs a little help. So I hope, and once again, this is not paid for by Bill. This is me Brad from Brad and John. You ready?
I'm ready, Brad.
Here we go.
In a small town in Missouri, where the rivers flow so wide, lived a man named Bill Eigel with dreams he couldn't hide. He had a heart for the people and a vision all his own, to be the next Missouri governor, stand tall and alone. He walked the dusty main street with a smile on his face, shaking hands and kissing babies in every little place. He spoke of change and progress for the working folks around. Bill Eigel was their voice, one they had found. Oh, Bill Eigel, the man of the hour, with his cowboy boots and his hat so tall. He's got a plan, he's got the power to lead the state, one and all.
I'm telling you, that's going.
Oh, Brad, that's so good.
That's going to put him over.
So good.
That's going to put him over the top, don't you think? And here's here's the music where it play out, and the announcers go, Bill Eigel, the man from Missouri. He's the man that we need to be as the next governor. He's the man that can control the state and send it to the spot where it needs to be. Not paid for by Bill Eigel for governor. No association whatsoever with him. How's that? How did I do?
It's a banger, Brad. It's definitely one of the top 2 campaign songs that's been written about Bill Eigel.
What's the other one?
Oh, there's a supporter that wrote a song about Bill Eigel.
Right? Really? Was it good?
Yeah. And, I mean, first of all, it's nowhere near as good as the one that you can post, Brad. I'm a bit of a homer toward you. But you know what? I have a prediction that by the time we get to August, you could fill a compact disc. For anybody who remembers compact discs, you could fill a compact disc with Bill Eigel tribute songs, Brad.
You think there'd be a lot of them?
Yeah, I think so. I think the folks that did the original one, I think that, started a little something. And then I think yours, though, the production value of yours is obviously, far superior. And I think it will probably inspire some other people to write some ditties. Now, the dark side of this, though, Brad, is that I imagine the Ashcroft campaign will come out with a diss record, and you may get some stray shots. Like, I imagine they'll come out with an album that disses Bill Eigel.
Well, maybe we'd need to do one for Jay Ashcroft as well, too. Maybe I should do. You know what? I think he needs. Don't you think he'd be better with a rap hip hop version?
Yeah. Well, actually, I would have thought more folk.
Folk?
Or maybe a little bit of Christian gospel, like maybe a remix of Let the Eagle Soar. Maybe like a, I don't know, kind of a 2024 version of it.
It's going to be, how many months now? Interesting, 7 months or something like that? What do we?
Well, hey, we've only got
6 months.
We have, let's see, I'm so bad at math, Brad. August is 8. So we have less than 4 months until the primary.
Oh, the primary. I'm thinking November. Okay,
yeah, and
that's right.
that's the election. I mean, that's
right.
The only important election. Hey, speaking real quick of candidates, Brad, what do you think about on Monday to come on and not talk about his campaign?
Who's that?
To not talk about his campaign?
Well, who?
What about Mike Carter? Mike Carter reached out and says that he'd love to chat with us, Brad.
He reached out to you?
Yeah, he replied to our. So the other day on Twitter, I posted a link. Instead of sending people directly to bjshow.co, where folks can still find a massive archive, I've started including links and tweets to our YouTube page. So Mike Carter listened to our YouTube, listened to the track, or listened to the conversation where we mentioned him the other day, and he sent a comment to us, Brad, and it's in our YouTube comment section. We have to review these and approve them, so it won't show up to the public yet. But he said, hey, let's chat. He said DM or text me. So what I think we could do, Brad, because I mentioned that I don't want to have a slew of candidates come on and clog up our segments talking about their campaigns, I do think it would be cool to have Mike Carter come on maybe on Monday, and he could talk a little bit about Don't Blow or whatever that non-oral campaign he's running is about DWIs. And then also, Brad, we could put to bed, we could confirm what I know you're hoping, which is there's no beef between you two. He hasn't been avoiding any phone calls or anything like that. It's just a matter of you guys haven't connected. And this will be the show that brings us together on Monday. What do you think?
John, we're over in this segment. We'll talk about that first thing next segment. How's that?
All right, we'll do it.
Okay. You want me to be brutally honest next break?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?